Spirit warriors, picture this. You're standing in a courtroom surrounded not by allies but by snakes in suits, smiling faces hiding venomous intentions. You're not here to beg, not here to argue. You're here because heaven said the inheritance that was stolen, the birthright that was buried, the legacy they tried to erase, it's being restored. Why? Because the truth always has a way of rising to the surface, no matter how deep they tried to bury it. When heaven backs you, the courtroom becomes more than a legal arena, it becomes a holy battlefield. What unfolds isn't just legal drama, it's divine retribution. The very ones who schemed are now under spiritual indictment, because when you mess with a chosen one, you invite justice on a higher level. Proverbs 13:22 rings louder than ever. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. That means what they thought they stole is already earmarked for your return. Spirit warriors, this isn't fantasy, this is spiritual law. And when divine law enters the scene, earthly manipulation doesn't stand a chance. God's courtroom doesn't need fingerprints or testimonies, it needs obedience, silence, and the armor of righteousness. You see, silence isn't weakness, it's often the loudest declaration of trust in divine timing. Your stillness shook the very foundations of the enemy's plans. The schemes they whispered in back rooms are now public shame. Why? Because they forgot one thing. You're not just protected, you're positioned to reclaim, positioned to reign, and positioned to watch the wicked fall into the very traps they set for you. You didn't click this video by accident. You came here because your spirit is ready to rise. Stay locked in, because what we're about to break down will arm you with 7 powerful truths that will help you walk boldly into your divine inheritance. The snakes may hiss, but heaven roars louder. Let's go. Point 1. They never expected you to know your rights. Absolutely, Earth Angel. Let's dive deep into this divine revelation and unwrap the truth behind what really happens when a chosen one steps into the battlefield, not just for inheritance, but for identity, legacy, and spiritual vindication. See, most people think courtroom battles are about paperwork, signatures, and who has the best attorney. But when you're a chosen one, it's not just about a will, it's about spiritual warfare. This inheritance case, it wasn't just about a house, land, or a check. It was about proving that what was always yours could no longer be hidden, delayed, or denied. When this case blew wide open, your enemies laughed. They scoffed. They said, they don't know anything. They don't have the money. They don't have the connections. They won't last a day. What they didn't count on, angels, was that you weren't walking into that courtroom as just another person. You were walking in as a vessel of divine wisdom. God himself had already briefed you, through dreams that jolted you awake, through strange conversations that seemed random but were actually divine downloads, through intuition so sharp you could see right through the lies before they even spoke. They planned it like you were dumb, like you were weak. But wisdom is your birthright. That's what they never understood. Chosen ones are never truly unprepared. We may walk in looking quiet, but we're spiritually equipped. That courtroom, it wasn't just filled with lawyers and judges, it was filled with angels, ancestors, and the Lion of Judah himself. The atmosphere shifted the moment you walked in. The judge didn't know it, but they were in the presence of the Most High working through you. This is deeper than legalities. It's about reclaiming what was spiritually stolen. For generations, some of you have come from lineages that were silenced, dismissed, and robbed of dignity. And now, the battle isn't just about property. It's about restoration. It's about putting your family name back where it belongs. It's about saying, I know who I am now. I see clearly, and I will no longer be erased. And here's the most powerful truth. Angels. When a chosen one discovers who they truly are, the enemy trembles. Because you're no longer begging for recognition. You're walking with divine authority. You stop asking for crumbs and start claiming kingdom territory. Your language changes, your posture changes. You're not pleading, you're declaring, not hoping. They'll be fair, but knowing heaven's justice has already been declared. This kind of awareness terrifies people. It shakes those who tried to manipulate the outcome. Suddenly, the people who mocked you go quiet. The ones who underestimated you look away. And the ones who tried to hide the truth, now they sit in silence, wrestling with the fact that you were never blind. You just allowed their own ego to reveal them. But here's the key. Earth Angel, don't get bitter, get better. Don't waste your energy on revenge. Your victory isn't just in the outcome of a case, it's in your elevation. The real punishment for those who tried to play you is watching you rise higher, gracefully, unapologetically, and divinely favored. You won, not because you had more money or louder lawyers, but because heaven backed you. And best believe, God uses even your enemies as instruments of revelation. They thought they were setting traps, but all they did was reveal your strength, activate your purpose, and expose their own intentions. Now they sit with regret, not because they lost something, but because they lost you. The real you, the spiritually awake, powerfully positioned, deeply protected you. So walk tall, chosen one. The land is yours. The legacy is yours. The history is being rewritten, and your name is on the title deed. Point 2, you spoke with grace while they lied with desperation. In a world that screams for attention, chosen ones move differently. They don't need the spotlight. They don't argue to prove a point. They don't yell to be heard. No, when a chosen one whispers, heaven echoes. The room goes quiet. The energy shifts. And everyone, even their enemies, can feel it. Let's take it to that courtroom scene. Oh, they were ready for a show. They expected you to crack under pressure. They thought they could provoke you, corner you, make you stumble. After all, they had it all, the slick lawyers, the scripted narratives, and the evidence crafted in shadows. They thought the case was sealed, the verdict guaranteed. But what they didn't calculate was who was standing beside you, what was inside you. You didn't come to war with noise. You came cloaked in grace, in divine poise, in a stillness so powerful it disrupted every plan set against you. Because chosen ones don't walk into battles alone, they walk in covered. You didn't break character because your character was never for sale. You stood there with quiet confidence, not because of pride, but because of knowing who you are, knowing who sent you, and most importantly, knowing how it ends. Science backs this up too. Studies show that people who remain calm under stress are perceived as more competent and trustworthy. When you speak with a measured clarity, people don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. In fact, researchers have found that our nervous systems can regulate each other, meaning your calmness in that high-stress courtroom didn't just settle your nerves, it unsettled theirs. Your enemies were sweating bullets under the heat of their own deception. And you were anointed with peace that surpasses understanding. Let's talk about that anointing, because it's not just a religious concept, it's spiritual authority. And when you walk in that, the whole atmosphere adjusts. You don't need backup when you are the backup. Your alignment with truth was your strongest evidence. No need to debate when reality itself is testifying on your behalf. Your enemies thought they were playing chess, but they forgot one thing: they were never the opponent. The real battle was spiritual, and they brought ink to a firestorm. You came armored with discernment. Every move they made, you saw it. Every lie they told, you felt it. They didn't realize you were steps ahead, not because of intellect alone, but because of insight. Divine intuition is a gift chosen ones carry. It's why people underestimate you and then regret it. And here's the twist of destiny. While they were trying to destroy your reputation, they accidentally exposed their own. That's the divine reversal at play. You didn't need to retaliate. You just stood still, and the lies collapsed under their own weight. You see, when you're aligned with God, you don't have to fight dirty. You don't even have to raise your voice. Your presence speaks louder than your words. Your peace is unsettling to people who live in chaos. Your clarity disturbs those who operate in confusion, and your elevation makes them question their position. So let them mock, let them plot, let them lie. Because in the end, truth always walks out of the fire untouched. Your enemies came with accusations. You came with an assignment. They came with manipulation. You came with a divine mission. And when the verdict was rendered, it wasn't just a legal victory. It was a spiritual one. That's what happens when heaven fights for you. That's what happens when you know you're chosen. And the best part, the people who came to watch you fall ended up witnessing your rise. Point 3, your presence exposed their hidden intentions. There's something magnetic, almost otherworldly about your presence, chosen one. And no, it's not something you asked for or trained for in a conventional sense. It's not about fancy clothes, loud words, or theatrical displays. It's something far deeper. Your aura. It doesn't scream for attention, but it commands it. It doesn't fight for the spotlight, but it naturally becomes the lighthouse in the storm. You walk into a room and suddenly things shift, the temperature changes, the energy recalibrates. People straighten up, not out of fear of you, but out of fear of what you carry. You see, the truth has a frequency and you vibrate on it. Your spirit doesn't just take up space. It exposes what's hidden in the shadows. That's why liars start stammering. That's why manipulators can't finish a sentence around you. It's not paranoia, it's spiritual pressure. The kind that makes demons twitchy and snakes start hissing in broad daylight. And they don't even know why they're reacting like that. But deep down they feel it. Your energy sniffs out deception. Your light pulls out confessions. The very moment you step into situations others try to keep murky, the fog lifts. Truth gets nervous. Lies get wobbly. People start volunteering information you didn't even ask for. Remember that courtroom moment? Oh, they thought they had everything under control. Legal jargon, forged documents, poker faces. It was all going to go their way. But then you walked in, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Jaws clenched. Eye contact was avoided. Whispers turned into arguments. One by one, their carefully rehearsed narratives collapsed under the weight of your presence. Why? Because this wasn't just about legalities. It was spiritual warfare, disguised as civil procedure. They thought this was about a will, the document. But it was really about willpower, yours. It was about divine timing, about what happens when someone anointed by truth shows up with clarity, conviction, and that unshakable calm. You didn't even need to raise your voice. Just your stillness alone made the chaos speak. The fakers began fumbling. The guilty started accusing each other, trying to throw each other under the bus to save themselves. And you stood still. Because prophets don't panic, they witness. They played chess, thinking you were just another pawn. But they didn't realize you came into the room carrying the discernment of someone who's seen beyond the veil, someone who knows not only what's happening, but why. That's what terrifies them most. Not that you're strong, but that you're aware, that you knew the game before they even rolled the dice, that you saw the snakes long before they shed their skins. And here's the kicker. Chosen one, don't let it make you bitter, let it make you better. Because when people mock, doubt, or plot against you and still watch you rise, that's a sermon all by itself. The very ones who wanted to bury you are now forced to sit in the front row of your victory. They didn't expect the tables to turn, certainly not this dramatically, but they did. Because God doesn't just prepare a table for you in spite of your enemies. He prepares it in front of them. So let them sit with their regret. Let them marinate in the weight of what they tried to do and what it cost them instead. Because when you carry divine favor, even your enemies become your footstool, not by your hand, but by God's orchestration. And that courtroom, that was never just about an inheritance of land or money. It was about an inheritance of legacy, of truth, of spiritual authority. You didn't just win the case, you revealed the truth. And that's something no one can appeal. Point 4. They planned for court, but God prepared a table. While they were busy calling attorneys and collecting receipts, you were on your knees with tear-soaked prayers and empty stomachs, fasting not out of desperation, but out of deep trust. They were pouring money into legal teams, hiring private investigators, building cases, and stacking up documents like trophies. But you were tapping into a courtroom much higher than theirs, a courtroom where truth is the judge, and justice never needs a bribe. Heaven wasn't just watching, it was intervening. And when heaven opens its books, even the best human strategies begin to look like child's play. Psalm 23:5 says it plain and powerful. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Let's pause and think about that. It doesn't say God removed your enemies or hid you from them. Nope. It says he prepared a table right in front of them. Translation: God's version of victory doesn't require you to be hidden. It requires you to be elevated. Right there, in the middle of the courtroom, the chaos, the gossip, the legal traps, and all the shade being thrown your way, God sets up a banquet, not just a win, a public win. So while they were calling in favors and making secret phone calls, things started shifting. A piece of evidence that was mysteriously lost somehow resurfaced. A judge who was clearly biased suddenly recused himself. No explanation was needed. Then a new lawyer got assigned to your case, and by some divine alignment, they just happened to know your background, your character, and your truth. All of it clicked into place like pieces of a heavenly puzzle. coincidence, not even close. These weren't strokes of luck. They were strokes of divine orchestration. See, the spiritual realm had already ruled in your favor long before the first subpoena was issued. Heaven had already whispered, "This one belongs to me." What played out in court was just the earthly realm scrambling to catch up to a decision already made in the spirit. Let's make this real. When you walk with God, even the traps set by your enemies start turning into trampolines. Their weapons, they start malfunctioning, or better yet, start redirecting. What they designed to bury you ends up blessing you. That's not karma, that's divine chess. And baby, God is not playing checkers. Every move they made, God countered with precision. Every accusation, he answered with grace and favor. Every lie was unraveled in front of the very people who believed it. And in the end, those who gathered to watch your downfall were stuck watching your divine banquet instead. Checkmate. But here's the beautiful twist. This wasn't just about your vindication, it was also about their revelation. Sometimes God allows enemies to rise, not to destroy you, but to teach them. Your resilience, your faith, and your refusal to stoop to their level, that became their lesson. While you were rising, they were realizing they'd misjudged you, misunderstood the source you walk with, and underestimated the power of someone covered by prayer, purpose, and promise. So next time opposition rises, don't panic, don't plot revenge, fast, pray, stay in alignment, because when you're on God's path, even courtroom drama becomes part of your destiny story. Let them bring lawyers, let them dig deep. Heaven already wrote your victory, and when heaven rules, earth obeys. Point 5, your silence was strategic and spiritual. When you got quiet, heaven got loud. The power of prophetic silence. You didn't clap back. You didn't post cryptic quotes. You didn't tag them in a messy online rant. You didn't even let your facial expression betray what you knew. Instead, you got quiet. Still, not because you were weak, but because you were wise. Because somewhere deep inside you knew sometimes silence is not submission, it's strategy. And in your stillness, something divine started to stir. Let's be real. In this age of receipts, screenshots, and viral call-outs, silence is misunderstood. It's often mistaken for guilt or fear, but for the chosen ones, for the spiritually awakened, the purpose-driven warriors, silence is sacred. It's the secret weapon of those who walk with divine alignment. When you refused to fight dirty, the universe began to move on your behalf. That's not superstition, that's spiritual law. In fact, Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even a fool is considered wise when he holds his peace." You didn't hold your tongue to protect them, you held it to protect your destiny. And that silence? Oh, it burned them more than any fiery comeback ever could. Because your enemies weren't expecting it. They were ready for drama. They were itching for chaos. But you denied them the satisfaction. And in doing so, you flipped the script. Your silence triggered their conscience, stirred their fear, and gave room for their lies to unravel all on their own. You didn't have to lift a finger, because truth has a funny way of surfacing when you step back and let God take the mic. Suddenly, records surfaced, emails they thought were deleted, recovered, people they manipulated into silence, speaking out, things they whispered in shadows, echoed in the light. See, the chosen ones don't need to broadcast everything, they just need to align with the divine. Because when you kneel in faith, heaven stands in defense, and when heaven stands up, no lie, no plot, no betrayal can stand against you. Make no mistake, you weren't being passive, you were being prophetic. You let your stillness prophesy your confidence. You knew that you serve a God who says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." So you didn't seek revenge, you sought righteousness, and that made all the difference. While they scrambled to manage the chaos they caused, you focused on growth. You healed, you built, you prayed, and that spiritual maturity paid off. And the best part, they thought you didn't know. They believed you were blind to their schemes. But oh, you knew. You just refused to match their energy. Because when you're truly chosen, your battles aren't fought in the flesh, they're fought in the spirit. You trusted the process. You let God write the ending, and now they sit in regret while you rise in grace. The truth is, the enemy's greatest confusion is your calm. When they expected outrage, you offered stillness. When they expected exposure, you offered silence. And that quiet power, that unnerved them, because silence from a powerful soul doesn't mean defeat, it means discernment. And discernment, dear reader, is the language of the chosen, so keep that peace. Don't lose your crown trying to prove a point. Let the receipts fall from heaven. Let the lies collapse under their own weight. Let God's voice be the one they hear ringing in their ears when all is said and done. Because when you get quiet and the word does the warfare, you don't just win, you ascend. And now you walk taller. Not because you screamed the loudest, but because you trusted the highest. Point 6. Justice wasn't just served, it was sanctified. This wasn't the kind of justice that tiptoes quietly in the night or slides across a negotiation table under dimmed lights. No, this was divine justice, the kind that rolls in like thunder after years of silence, shaking everything that once stood smug and untouchable. The kind of justice that doesn't knock politely but kicks down the doors of deceit and shines an unrelenting spotlight on every dirty little game that was played in secret. They thought they had you, thought you were naive, powerless, easy to overlook. After all, what chance did one person, the quiet one, the underestimated one, have against an entire system built on manipulation, false documents, and forged intentions? But what they didn't realize was that you weren't moving alone. You were walking with divine backing. And when the Most High steps in, everything changes. What did they stole? Oh, it came back sevenfold, just like Proverbs 6:31 says, "Yet if he is caught, he must pay sevenfold, though it costs him all the wealth of his house." That's not just poetic justice. That's spiritual law. They robbed you of what was rightfully yours. Your inheritance, your reputation, your peace, and the universe, like clockwork, brought it all back to you with interest. Their strategy was simple. Lie loud, lie long, and hope no one notices. But the light of truth has no respect for shadows. Every falsified document got dragged into daylight. Every email, every bank transaction, every whisper in court hallways, exposed. And when the judge ruled in your favor, it wasn't just a legal victory, it was a divine exclamation point. The inheritance that was contested, twisted, and withheld was now released into your hands, officially, publicly, powerfully. And then came the plot twist. Investigations opened, auditors were called in, the very people who pointed fingers at you were now signing affidavits for you. Lawyers who once stood proudly for the other side began backing out, not just for ethics, but out of fear. Witnesses who were once too afraid to speak flipped like coins in a storm. Truth, it seems, is contagious when the tide turns. Those who laughed behind your back. Their laughter turned into frantic whispers, because now their phones are being tapped, their accounts frozen. Their lies? Ironically, those became ladders for your elevation. Every insult they hurled became a stepping stone. Every attempt to bury you became a seedbed for your divine breakthrough. And here's the most powerful part of it all. When a chosen one wins, it's never just a personal win. It's a cosmic broadcast, a spiritual message echoing into realms seen and unseen. It's God showing his receipts. He doesn't just vindicate you in private, he exalts you in front of the very ones who tried to block your rise. Because the chosen one's victory is designed to shift atmospheres. It reminds the wicked that there is a higher power watching. It humbles the proud. And it encourages the faithful, the silent sufferers, and the underestimated warriors who wonder if justice will ever reach their doorstep. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't petty, it was divine order. A courtroom became a cathedral, a ruling became a revival. And your testimony, it now walks ahead of you like a banner. What God has for me is mine, and no human hand can steal it without consequences. So let the tables turn, let the truth reign, because when you're chosen, justice isn't just served, it's anointed. Point 7. You walked out with more than money. You walked out with your mantle. Yes, you got the inheritance. The legal documents are stamped, the assets transferred, the whispers silenced. But Spirit Warrior, don't miss this. The real inheritance wasn't just the money, the land, or the title. That was the visible reward, the tangible proof, the cherry on top of a much deeper sacred transaction. What you truly inherited, what heaven handed to you in secret, was the mantle, the spiritual authority, the divine upgrade that activated your next level. See, not everyone walks away from a battle with more than a win. Some walk away wounded, some walk away bitter. But you walked out with honor. You stayed grounded in your truth, even when the pressure tried to twist your integrity. You saw the snakes in the grass and didn't stomp around in revenge. You watched with discernment. And in doing so, you elevated. You didn't just fight for your name, you protected your character. That's kingdom-level strength. You need to understand something powerful here. Mantles are not passed out like party favors. In the Bible, mantles symbolized responsibility, calling, and weight. Think of Elisha receiving Elijah's mantle. It wasn't just a transfer of status, it was a divine empowerment. And just like that, your journey through the inheritance battle wasn't just legal, it was spiritual. You didn't just inherit wealth, you inherited wisdom, spiritual rank, and the backing of the Most High. The scars you carry, they're no longer wounds. Heaven has turned them into medals. You endured betrayal, manipulation, gaslighting, and maybe even character assassination. People whispered about you, they plotted. They underestimated the depth of your spiritual insight. But guess what? While they were busy trying to calculate your collapse, the heavens were preparing your coronation. They thought they were watching your downfall, but they were actually witnessing your divine unveiling. Now, when your name is spoken, it carries weight. There's a shift in the atmosphere. People feel it. There's power. There's reverence. Not because of the money in your account, but because of the spirit in your chest. You became a living testimony, walking proof that you can be both fierce and faithful, both silent and strategic, both humble and highly favored. You were tested in the fire, and you didn't just survive, you refined. That's why you shine now, not in ego, but in excellence, not in pride, but in purpose. So remember this, spirit warrior, the next level isn't coming, it's already here. The inheritance may have closed a chapter, but the mantle just opened a new scroll. What you carry now cannot be stolen, sold, or sabotaged. It was given by God and sealed in the fire. This isn't just spiritual hype, it's biblical. Throughout Scripture, God passes mantles as divine authority and assignment, like when Elijah's cloak fell upon Elisha, 2 Kings 2:13-14. That wasn't just fabric. It was destiny transferred. Your journey mirrors this. What you've inherited is not a reward from man, but a divine confirmation from God. That's why the enemy can't touch it. This wasn't about money or land. It was about God proving a point through your resilience. The trials you endured were never just obstacles. They were stages, and the world watched. Now they're witnessing the consequences. Your silence carried weight because when you're chosen, your stillness speaks louder than their noise. Your presence shifts atmospheres because your spirit is anchored in truth. And your destiny? It's already been signed, sealed, and sanctioned in heavenly courts, far above human systems. That's why you must stay spiritually alert. Stay in prayer. Stay grounded, because the next time judgment falls, it won't be on you. It'll be on every tongue that rose in falsehood and every plan that tried to derail you. Let that sink in. Watch this again if you need to. Share it with another chosen one, and walk forward with the authority of the kingdom. The world is waiting on your obedience. Amen.